Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 8 Part 30 based on novel. So let's start. The deep yellow energy was just like a flame that came sweeping out from underground. It occupied the other half of the sky. That majestic and mighty strength appeared to ignite this world. A lean figure stood at the center of the flame. Like an eagle hovering in the horizon, a pair of bright and penetrating eyes was firmly locked onto Wang Yang in the distance, who had a demon-like figure above his head. This was the first time Lin Dong had used the Great Desolation scripture. He could clearly sense the energy within the surrounding land gather around him at this moment. Moreover, he could control this energy. It was a tremendous energy that he had never possessed before. At this moment, Lin Dong finally understood why the Great Desolation scripture could become the strongest martial art in the Dao sect. This was basically forcefully borrowing the energy of the land for one's use in an overbearing manner. From a certain point of view, this was similar to the devouring ancestral symbol. However, the power borrowed by the Great Desolation scripture would be unleashed in an extremely short amount of time, hence creating an extremely terrifying attack. On the other hand, the devouring ancestral symbol would swallow and digest the strength, completely turning it to its owner's strength bit by bit. Amongst these two things, one was for the now while the other was for the future. Their natures were completely different. Such an overwhelming power. Lin Dong extended his hand and clenched it gently. Immediately, the corners of his lips lifted to form a smile on his face. One could tell that he was quite satisfied with the power of this Great Desolation scripture. Bang bang. The large black palm that seemingly covered the skies carried an extremely frightening pressure as it approached the sky. The originally cracked ground also crumbled at this moment, transforming into a barren land. Lin Dong inhaled a deep breath of air. His originally bright eyes had now become dazzling. Immediately, his hands held the black tree tightly and lifted it high up into the air. After which, he chopped down with it. Clamor! After this tree of Lin Dong's came crushing downwards, the bright deep yellow energy that occupied half of the sky came whistling over like a storm. In the end, it completely covered the black tree trunk in front of the many stunned gazes present, forming 1,000 feet large bright tail of light. Great Desolation scripture, Desolation tear. A deep and hoarse voice rang out amidst the wild and violent yuan power in the sky as Lin Dong chopped downwards with the tree. Lin Dong's voice had just sounded when 1,000 feet long bright light arc suddenly erupted from the black tree trunk. Bang bang bang. The instant the light arc was unleashed, a large gully thousands of feet was being forcefully torn open. In the end, it directly spread to the edge of the mountain from the middle of the battleground. It was as if it intended to split this mountain into two. The speed of the light arc was extremely frightening. Everyone merely saw a ray of light streak past. When they focused, the monstrous light tiger had already violently hacked onto the large black shadow palm in front of their shocked eyes. The shocking collision surprisingly did not emit any sound. Two extremely frightening energy attacks met each other like fire and water, frantically eroding each other with the intention of obliterating the other party. Crash! A frightening energy ripple frantically spread outwards in the sky. A kind of distorted feeling appeared wherever the two energies met. Everyone was glued to the frightening offensive erosion in the sky. A moment later, their pupils suddenly shrunk. The two similarly ferocious energies finally lost control while eroding each other. In the end, they swept outwards. It was as though a sandstorm had swept over the area. None of those present could avoid it. Some of the nearer disciples were shaken till they spat out a mouthful of blood. Their faces were deathly pale while shock filled their eyes. This was merely some resultant waves. Yet, they were already unable to defend against it. They really could not imagine just how frightening the scene at the center of the collision was. Black and yellow shock waves rippled outwards. Everyone watched as the two figures were blown back like cannonballs after being struck by the shock waves. A mouthful of fresh blood was spat out when the two figures flew backwards. Clearly, they had ended up suffering quite a serious injury from the backlash. Ying Huan watched the two seriously injured human figures in the battleground, as her hand involuntarily covered her mouth. Anxiety flashed across her eyes. Lin Dong and Wang Yang were both ferocious individuals, and a battle between them was truly one that would make even onlookers fearful. Anyone who showed an opening would at least be seriously injured by their previous attacks. The black tree in Lin Dong's hand was heavily thrust into the ground, causing a long and deep scar that was hundreds of meters long as it was dragged along the ground. The green dragon wings behind him were flapped violently. Only then did it gradually resolve the frightening force that had invaded his body. Lin Dong wiped off the blood trace at the corner of his mouth after stabilizing his body. A vicious look rose deep within those cold, stern eyes of his. Immediately, he held the black tree and flapped the dragon wings on his back. His body emitted a swoosh sound as he disappeared in a strange manner. At a spot a great distance in front of Lin Dong, Wang Yang had also forcefully stabilized his body. He appeared disheveled, and there was a faint trace of disbelief within his eyes. Clearly, he never imagined that Lin Dong would actually block his attack. There was a whole 3 yuan nirvana stage gap between both of them. Was the Great Desolation scripture really so tyrannical? However, Wang Yang did not ponder too deeply into this matter. This was because his expression suddenly changed in the next instant as his body strangely dodged to the side. Bang! Just when Wang Yang's body had pulled back, the black tree tore through the distant sky and violently struck the spot where he had stood earlier with frightening power. A gully spread in a lightning-like fashion and chased Wang Yang, who was flying backwards. Sharp rocks wrapped with vigorous yuan power shot towards his vitals. Bang bang bang. Wang Yang's body was in the air as the broadsword in his hand was waved violently. Powerful sword chi directly sliced those rock fragments into dust. That sword chi of Wang Yang had just landed when that ghost-like figure once again appeared in front of him. A ferocious fist force ruthlessly slammed towards Wang Yang's chest. A fierce aura flashed across Wang Yang's eyes when he saw this chain of attacks by Lin Dong. This time around, he did not dodge, and a sharp kick flew out. His fighting style was extremely vicious, and he was usually the one pushing others into a life-and-death struggle with his viciousness. Since when did he end up being forced to continue pulling back by another in a similar fashion? Bang bang. The punch and kick that contained a ferocious strength finally landed violently onto the other party's body. Immediately, the two of them let out a muffled snort. Their bodies landed on the ground and staggered backwards, exchanging a punch for a kick. The both of them actually did not have any thoughts of defending. Such a risky berserker style caused quite a number of disciples to feel their scalps turn numb. These two fellows were truly ruthless. Lin Dong spat out a mouthful of blood from his mouth. His hand trembled slightly as his eyes stared at Wang Yang in a somewhat cold manner. When his fist hand landed on the latter's body earlier, it appeared that the latter had something on his body that had reduced the power by half. Lin Dong, you won't be able to defeat me. Wang Yang wiped off the trace of blood on his face. A cold smile was revealed on his indifferent face. Immediately, his body trembled slightly as a faint golden glow surfaced on his body. After which, the golden glow gathered, forming an outer skin-like layer that wrapped his entire body under it. You are indeed extremely amazing to battle me to such a state with the strength of the 6 yuan nirvana stage. However, there is after all a frightening gap between a 6 yuan and a 9 yuan. The current me has already begun to form a yuan spirit and can use the strength of a yuan spirit to form this yuan spirit cuticle. Your attacks will not be able to break it. Yuan spirit cuticle. Lin Dong's eyes hardened. No wonder he sensed a familiar fluctuation from it. It was actually formed by yuan spirit. It was something that could only be formed after one had at least reached the 7 yuan nirvana stage. However, forming a yuan spirit force did not mean that one could form a yuan spirit. Even someone like Wang Yang had likely not reached that stage. However, Wang Yang must have had some kind of special encounter. His yuan spirit force had actually formed such a yuan spirit cuticle. The defensive properties of this thing was quite strong. A glow faintly flickered within Lin Dong's eyes. His foot suddenly stomped on the ground and his body once again rushed out explosively. Stubborn fellow! The ferocious aura within Wang Yang's eyes became even more intense when he saw Lin Dong continue to charge over. The broadsword in his hand suddenly pierced outwards explosively. The black tree and the broadsword collided violently. Lin Dong suddenly urged the force within his palm and the black tree shot out. It held the broadsword as both shot out of their owner's hands. After sending his opponent's weapon flying, Lin Dong immediately approached Wang Yang's body. A ferocious palm force ruthlessly flew out. Ying Xiaoxiao and Ying Huan involuntarily exclaimed when they saw this action of Lin Dong's. Although they were aware that Lin Dong's physical body was strong, the current Wang Yang possessed the Yuan spirit cuticle. How could a weaponless Lin Dong break such a defense? Fool! Wang Yang's eyes immediately turned icy cold when he saw that Lin Dong actually dared to approach him. He possessed the Yuan spirit cuticle. Those ordinary attacks of Lin Dong would barely cause him any harm. On the other hand, a punch of his would be able to immediately injure Lin Dong. Bang! Wang Yang's palm swiftly thrust forward and directly landed on Lin Dong's chest. The wild and violent force caused Lin Dong to feel a sweetness in his throat as a bloody smell surged out from his mouth. However, Lin Dong ignored it. His face, which was covered in fresh blood, appeared exceptionally ferocious. In the end, his hand also landed on Wang Yang's body. The moment Lin Dong's palm landed, Wang Yang suddenly saw that the corner of the former's mouth lift to form a mysterious smile. After which, he saw a golden palm-sized light wheel flash and appear in Lin Dong's palm. This is a Yuan spirit weapon. At this moment, astonishment gushed up in the eyes of the usually stone-faced Wang Yang. Shock suddenly arose within Wang Yang's indifferent eyes. However, Lin Dong did not give him much time to be shocked. His eyes were cold as he viciously pressed his golden light wheel onto Wang Yang's body. The golden light wheel slammed heavily against the golden cuticle layer on Wang Yang's body. Sparks instantaneously erupted as an ear-piercing noise frantically rang out. Crack! The sharpness of the golden light wheel had obviously reached a terrifying level. As radiant golden sparks violently shot out, cracks began to appear on the Yuan spirit cuticle that had extremely strong defensive properties. As the cracks appeared, Wang Yang's pupils abruptly contracted. The Yuan spirit cuticle protected him, and it was thanks to it that he was able to survive 3 all-out attacks from 3 different 9 Yuan Nirvana stage experts. Hence, he never imagined that his defensive suit would actually show signs of crumbling due to Lin Dong's attack. Senior brother Wang Yang, it is you who has lost. While a look of disbelief appeared on Wang Yang's face, a somewhat horrifying smile appeared on Lin Dong's bloody face. Bang! After Lin Dong spoke, the Yuan spirit cuticle finally could not resist the sharpness of the dragon Yuan wheel any longer. With a loud bang, it shattered and blasted apart. The golden light quickly dimmed, before withdrawing back into Wang Yang's body. When his Yuan spirit cuticle was shattered, Wang Yuan suddenly lurched to the side, evading the dragon Yuan wheel as it furiously swept past. However, its sharp blade glow flashed past his chest, causing blood trail as fresh blood spurted out. Wang Yang's combat style was indeed very violent and cutthroat. After dodging such a formidable killing blow, his fist flew out at a crafty angle and viciously smashed towards Lin Dong. Bang! Wang Yang's fist heavily landed on Lin Dong's chest. Green light frantically surged at the spot. However, due to the tremendous force from the fist, it caused the blood within Lin Dong's body to violently churn. In the face of Wang Yang's fist, Lin Dong continued not to evade. He could feel the churning blood within his body. However, he continued to smile. In fact, when coupled with his bloody face, it truly caused one's blood to run cold. Wang Yang was indeed very fearsome and ruthless. This was a point that even Lin Dong had to admit. Even experts that were of the same stage would be intimidated by his risky all-out attacks. However, the style that he used did not achieve his desired effect. It seemed like the viciousness and ruthless within this young man's eyes were only greater than his own. You might be vicious, but he was even more vicious. Therefore, after receiving Wang Yang's fist head-on, Lin Dong used the resultant force to tilt his body. Immediately after, the sole of his foot wriggled strangely as a green glow instantaneously condensed, inflating and turning directly into a green dragon leg. Bang! Green light gushed on the fierce and cold green dragon leg as it shattered the air with a bang. Like a whip, it viciously swept out and landed on Wang Yang's body. Bang! A deep sound echoed as the ground was shattered apart by the resulting force. As for Wang Yang, he flew off like a cannonball, smashing through dozens of gigantic rocks. Vomit! Wang Yang cut a sorry figure as he stabilized himself. In the end, he was no longer able to resist as he vomited a mouthful of fresh blood in front of the shocked gazes of the crowd. As a mouthful of fresh blood was spat out, the yuan power within Wang Yang's body instantly turned sluggish. However, before he could recover, he suddenly heard a ear-piercing roar. As the sound increased in volume, Wang Yang's expression immediately changed before he instantly retreated. He lifted his gaze and swiftly glanced at his front. An after-image that was akin to an impertinent raging bull viciously charged towards him with astonishing momentum. There was no semblance of form or style, instead, there was only an extremely vicious to the maximum body slam. The currently Lin Dong had completely regarded his body as a weapon. Although it seemed like he was acting without thinking, it caused one to be terrified of his boldness. Bang! Lin Dong's body collided viciously against Wang Yang's body. A deep sound resounded across the entire arena, causing all the onlookers to hold their breaths. From afar, Ying Huan was clenching her jade-like hands and biting her lips. Although she knew that Lin Dong was extremely fierce and ruthless in a fight, the scene before her thoroughly frightened her. Naturally, it was not only her that felt this way. Even Ying Xiaoxiao, Chen Zhen, and the rest had faces full of astonishment. Right after the collision, the two bodies shot off in opposing directions due to the rebounding force. Their bodies created ditches over 100 meters in length before gradually slowing down. The originally terrifyingly violent auras around them started to turn exceptionally feeble at this moment. Both of them were heavily wounded. The entire arena was silent as they watched the two people struggle in an attempt to stand up. Their hearts could not help but tremble at the sight of the fresh blood that blanketed the ground. This battle was simply too bitter and tragic. Wang Yang struggled for a moment. However, in the end he did not manage to stand up again. He looked up to the sky, fresh blood covering his entire body as he gasped and panted hurriedly, emitting an aura that reeked of blood. Nevertheless, he firmly stared at the figure in the distance from the corner of his eye, who was also struggling to get up. However, the figure had obviously exhausted all his energy, and was also unable to stand up after struggling for a while. Both of us have lost, you can't defeat me either, Wang Yang mumbled hoarsely from the corner of his mouth. Bang! However, after he spoke, the figure in the distance started to shake, trembling and swaying as he stood up. Fresh blood dripped down from his body and dyed the floor below him red. Lin Dong's face was covered in gashes and the acute pain within his body caused his vision to turn blurry. However, he stubbornly stood up, stubbornly refusing to fall. Turning around, he rocked and swayed as he walked towards Wang Yang under the innumerable gazes from the surroundings. Looking at the man walking step by step on the arena with a smile hanging on his face while completely soaked in blood, Ying Huan's eyes involuntarily reddened. She proceeded to clench her teeth and was about to step forward, when she was stopped by Ying Xiaoxiao. Don't let all his effort go to waste. Else, senior brother Wang Yang will never admit defeat. Ying Xiaoxiao softly said. Ying Huan bit her lip while tightly clenching her jade-like hands. After a brief struggle, she finally buried her head into Ying Xiaoxiao's shoulder. Right now, she no longer dared to look at the current Lin Dong. She faintly knew about the things that Wang Yang had experienced over the past few years, and those incidents molded him to become a person that could make the hearts of others palpitate from his malevolence and viciousness. However, such viciousness was now completely suppressed by Lin Dong. With that, one could only imagine that the things that Lin Dong had experienced. It was likely that they must have been even more soul-wrenching than Wang Yang. At that time, a person without any backing like him had to face his enemies alone. Enemies that were like wolves and tigers that came from all directions. In the end, he had dragged his exhausted and bloody body as he emerged from that bloody path. When she thought about such a scene, a faint sour feeling arose on Ying Huan's nose. Who could have known the weight of the burden carried by that typically smiling and cheerful young man? Ying Xiaoxiao gently caressed Ying Huan's luxurious hair, before she softly sighed and mumbled, "He truly is a reckless fellow." Under the innumerable unblinking gazes from all directions, the shaking and swaying Lin Dong picked up the black tree that had shot off from the previous collision. Dragging it along, he proceeded to slowly walk to the front of Wang Yang. Raising the black tree, he placed the sharp steel-like tree branch against Wang Yang. Right now, the thin and slender youth wore a radiant yet amply chilling smile on his face as he said, "Senior brother Wang Yang, you've lost." Leaning against a rock, Wang Yang stared straight at the youth before him. Although the youth was smiling, there was a bone-chilling coldness within those eyes of his. The one before him caused even Wang Yang's vicious heart to feel a chill. Wang Yang stared at Lin Dong for quite a while, before the glare within his eyes started to dim. Lying against the rock, he gasped for a mouthful of air before saying, "The Dao sect has finally managed to produce an outstanding fellow." Lin Dong continued to smile. However, the black tree in front of Wang Yang was not withdrawn. "I've lost." As he wiped off the bloodstains from the corner of his mouth, Wang Yang slowly closed his eyes, before the words that allowed everyone to relax finally sounded out. Wang Yang had admitted defeat. An autumn wind appeared to blow past the messy mountaintop, lifting some stone fragments and withered leaves. Everyone was startled as they looked at Wang Yang, who was leaning against a rock with his eyes shut. A moment later, a somewhat complicated emotion finally surged out from their eyes. Wang Yang had lost, even the current most outstanding younger generation member, Ying Xiaoxiao, lost to him. Yet, he had actually lost. Moreover, the person whom he lost to was a new disciple who had joined the Dao sect for less than a year. This ending was clearly one that no one had predicted. This guy is truly amazing. Many disciples looked at each other and saw the sincere admiration from each other's shock-filled eyes. The Desolate Hall disciples were stunned for a moment, before excitement and pride surfaced on their faces. They were aware that after this battle, the Desolate Hall's position in the Dao sect would definitely be raised. It was likely that no one would dare to casually mock them like before. Who still dared to say that their Desolate Hall was the weakest? In this whole competition, Lin Dong was undoubtedly the most dazzling person. Big sis, he really won. Ying Huan's hands involuntarily tightened when she heard Wang Yang's words. Her large eyes appeared to be filled with joy, as if she had been relieved of a great burden. Ying Xiaoxiao nodded gently, while a smile revealed itself on her quiet and pale face. Although this meant that Lin Dong would obtain the commanding authority during the Great Sect competition, it was still better than letting Wang Yang have it. Lin Dong, it seems like he is someone who does not show off his true capabilities. His various trump cards have shocked others time and time again. Ying Xiaoxiao watched the young man holding a black tree on the stage. The same young man that had forced Wang Yang to admit defeat. Her eyes blinked once before she spoke. Big sis is also very powerful. If not for your soft-heartedness, senior brother Wang Yang might not have been able to defeat you. Ying Huan held Ying Xiaoxiao's wrist and laughed in a lovely manner. Lin Dong's victory had clearly allowed a heavy rock to be lifted from the young lady's heart, allowing her to regain her usual liveliness and energy. Ying Xiaoxiao shook her head and remained non-committal. She did not dwell on this topic. If one was to seriously discuss it, she was indeed not weaker than Wang Yang or Lin Dong. However, she lacked the decisive willingness to kill that the two of them possessed. This was something only those who have experienced countless life and death battles possessed. After a momentary shock, Chen and the rest seated on the tall platform also swiftly recovered. Even with they could not help but smile in relief. He is really someone who surprises others. Chen smiled before he glanced at Ying Xuanzi, who was seated in the middle. The latter's face was still as calm as a quiet lake. However, if one was to observe carefully, it was possible to see a twinkle in his eyes. Clearly, the Dao sect master was extremely satisfied with this result. Announce the result. Chen nodded after hearing Ying Xuanzi's words. He stood up as his gaze swept over the entire place. Following which, a low voice sounded out in a powerful manner, "The final victor of this whole competition is Lin Dong from the Desolate Hall." As the champion of the whole competition, he will hold the authority to command all Dao sect disciples during the great sect competition. Chen Zhen's mighty voice resounded over the mountaintop, sounding out in everyone's ears. After his final word sounded out, a thunderous cheer immediately erupted over the mountaintop. Those gazes that gathered on him were filled with great respect. After this fight, Lin Dong's reputation had undoubtedly reached the peak amongst the Dao sect younger generation members. Lin Dong let out a sigh upon hearing the cheering that enveloped the mountain. He flipped his hand and kept his black tree in his bag. After which, he raised his head and looked towards the tall platform as he laughed. "Teacher Uncle Chen Zhen, I think it is better to hand the commanding authority back to senior sister Xiao Xiao. I am not adept in such matters." Although commanding the Dao sect's disciples to engage in a bloody fight during the great sect competition seemed quite cool and prestigious, Lin Dong clearly understood that he was used to being alone. Something like commanding others was thus considered as a weakness of his. Hence, he did not want to get everyone else into trouble because of him. Outside of the arena, when Ying Xiaoxiao heard these words, she was startled. On the other hand, Ying Huan smilingly said, "What a tactful person." Ying Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes and said, "Weren't you terribly worried about him earlier? Yet, you are speaking in such a tough manner now." Ying Huan was silenced by these words to the point whereby her face turned completely red. She hurriedly shrunk her head back bitterly and did not dare to speak any more. On the tall platform, Chen Zhen was also startled by Lin Dong's words. He immediately turned his head to look at Ying Xuanzi. The latter mused for a moment before nodding. If one was to really discuss this issue, Ying Xiaoxiao was indeed the most suitable candidate. Although Lin Dong was cautious, that was on the precondition that his baseline was not touched. Anything could happen during the great sect competition. Should any unforeseen situation occur, there was no guarantee that he would not lose control. Since you have taken the initiative to propose this, we will do as you say and hand the commanding authority to Ying Xiaoxiao. Additionally, according to the rules, the champion of the whole competition will receive a reward. You should rest for 1 to 2 days first. Once you have recovered, head to the sect master's place. Chen Zhen finally turned around and spoke smilingly towards Lin Dong. The former's eyes were full of praise. Lin Dong did not act arrogantly despite his success. Instead, he took the initiative and handed this important commanding authority back to Ying Xiaoxiao. His actions would likely cause even Ying Xuanzi, who appeared impassive on the surface, to think a little higher of Lin Dong within his heart. There is a reward? Lin Dong lifted his brows. This was something that he was interested in. Given Ying Xuanzi's status, it was likely that his reward would be quite substantial, no? Wang Yang's expression was a little indifferent as he unsteadily stood up on the stage. After which, he picked up his broadsword, turned around and left without saying anything. His back was so lonely that it caused one's heart to ache. Ying Xiaoxiao and Ying Huan gazed at his back. The smiles that had just appeared on their faces involuntarily dimmed a little. No matter how one put it, they felt a great gratitude towards this person, who had taken care of them like a big brother back then. Senior brother Wang Yang. Lin Dong suddenly spoke while everyone was sadly staring at Wang Yang's back. You have already won. What else is there to say? Wang Yang paused without turning his head around and replied in an indifferent tone. I also dislike the people from the Yuan Gate. If there is a chance during the great sect competition, perhaps we can cooperate with each other. I wonder if senior brother Wang Yang is interested. Lin Dong smiled a little as he asked. Lin Dong knew that the great sect competition was likely going to be extremely dangerous and their Dao sect would also end up crossing paths with the Yuan Gate. At that time, Wang Yang's strength might be of great help. Furthermore, the Dao sect also needed such a strong disciple. Wang Yang was startled. He slowly turned his head and watched Lin Dong's smiling face. A long while later, his face, which did not even reveal any expression despite having fought with Lin Dong until both suffered great injuries, appeared to have the desire to smile. However, that smile ultimately did not appear. All he did was nod his head slowly towards Lin Dong. When the time comes, I'll kill whoever you ask me to. Additionally, you did well. Xiao Xiao is indeed the best candidate. It's just that I am not as magnanimous as you. Wang Yang's somewhat dark and gloomy voice was transmitted over. Immediately, he turned around and left. Lin Dong could not help but grin when he saw this. Wang Yang might be obstinate and antisocial, but on the whole, he was not as dislikable as one imagined. Lin Dong sent Wang Yang off with his eyes. After which, he stretched his waist. As his mood relaxed, the pain and tiredness that he had forcefully suppressed earlier swiftly surged over his body like floodwaters. That powerless sensation caused Lin Dong to find it difficult to even lift his arm. Lin Dong laughed bitterly when he sensed this powerless feeling within his body. In terms of intensity, this big battle was likely even more intense than the one with Yao Ling. Fortunately, Lin Dong's strength had been risen substantially compared to back then. Therefore, he did not wind up seriously injured and unconscious for 10 days like before. It is finally over. Although Lin Dong was exhausted, there was a relieved smile on his face. Immediately, he heaved a solemn sigh of relief within his heart. He raised his head and looked at the distant azure sky. It appeared as though the clouds were lingering there, encroaching towards this place at an extremely slow speed. Great sect competition. Yuan Gate, I'm really looking forward to seeing just how overbearing you can be at that time. The corners of Lin Dong's mouth slowly lifted into an arc that was as cold as a blade. He really looked forward to the arrival of that day. This video will end here.